Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
All right. We are good to go. Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me in another episode of The Drive, Las Vegas edition. Today I have a very special guest with me. I have the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr. Greg Ashe in the house. Greg, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me this morning.
Thanks for coming to jam with me. It's a beautiful day, so we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually picked a perfect day for this.
Yes. Hey, Greg, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and maybe don't know who you are and kind of how you guys started the business, I always love starting off these podcasts with a little origin story because I'm always super curious. So what is the origin story of how Greg got started in the automotive business?
Well, actually, I started in the data business, fell into automotive data mainly just because there was a lack of quality data after the introduction of the DPPA in '98 and the Shelby Amendment. Mostly the only automotive data that was out there was garage predictor data. Wanted to come up with a DPPA compliant way to compile automotive data and make it available. Figured it was much more accurate to actually know true vehicle ownership. Rather than just doing socioeconomic and prediction based off of status. Mm-hmm. So found a DPPA compliant way to compile a ton of data in automotive and never looked back.
Well, I'm excited and happy that you chose automotive as a vertical because you could have chosen a lot of verticals, right? And, you know, talk about a vertical that really does need some assistance in understanding the data that's available to us and also the data that we're just simply sitting on. You know, I mean, We use that statement all the time that dealerships are just sitting on a gold mine of data and they just really don't know how to mine it, how to use it, but then also how to combine that with all the available data points
Absolutely.
that are currently out there. So, well, let's kick it a little 101 style out there.
All right.
You know, first party data. I bet you we probably heard that term in this conference 1,600 times. But I still believe in counting, yes. But I still believe that there's a lot of dealerships out there that don't necessarily understand the difference between first and third party and so on, right?
Right.
So if you want to, let's describe for the audience kind of the difference between different data.
Well, first party in automotive is going to be your DMS or your CRM data, your form fill lead data. Mm-hmm. Your third party data is going to be any data collected or purchased outside of what your dealer internally collects. So any, data enhancements you do are going to be third party. Any data lists that you go out and buy are third party. Now, technically, depending on where you're acquiring those data assets, that data could also be first party, but technically it's third party to the dealer. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes into play. You can acquire third party data that's first party and use it for marketing purposes. It's when you get into third-party data where you don't have first-party rights that there's some confusion.
Yes, a lot of confusion around that.
So it's really important when a dealer's going out and acquiring a third-party source of data or enhancements that they understand how that data is aggregated, what the origins are of it, what are they, what are the use cases in which they're allowed to use it, is probably the most important, more than anything.
Well, and I think once we do understand what data is available to us, then of course the next big question is, well, that's great, Greg. What the hell do I do with it?
Well, data science is probably, the key thing. When you look at a lot of your larger automotive groups, they definitely have marketing in-house. They have data science in-house. For your smaller groups or your independents, it's obviously a lot more difficult. It's expensive, but there's a ton of data and analytic companies. Shameless plug here. That can assist you with that. They can look at your DMS. They can understand who your target audience is. Where in your PMA you have the most penetration from a heat map. And then the customers that are outside of on the edges of that heat map. Where you're starting to cool off, who in those areas look like your current customer base.
Yes.
Who's in market, who's showing shopping behavior, online intent, offline intent, visiting competing dealers. It's just really as far as you want to go.
You can literally go down that rabbit hole as deep as you want.
What I think a lot of your smaller dealers think it's astronomically expensive to go to a data science or a data analytics shop to understand it. And they just don't explore it because there's this automatic assumption that it's just going to cost a ton of money. And the other thing is, let's face it, there's some dirty folks in the data business that want to take your money.
Let's go on that, because I agree with you, right? I mean, I work with a lot of clients. I have consulted with a lot of dealerships, and I hate to say it, but I've seen some just real bullshit sold out there. And it's just, how can dealerships kind of sift through, or at least know that this vendor that may be pitching them is not one of those companies? Any tall tale signs?
I would say the biggest tall tale signs is, obviously, they've been in the game for a while. Mm-hmm. They have a good reputation. I would never. What I see a lot of smaller shops do is they always ask for referrals. And to that I say, have you ever given a bad reference?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
I mean, references are always going to be friends and stuff like that. And, I would just look at the industry. I would look at the tenure, and just look at the reputation. Look at who some of the larger groups are using. There's obviously your big name brands are always your safe bet. The downfall with your big name brands when dealing with them when you're a smaller shop is they don't move too quick for you.
Yeah.
So, there's a ton of small shops.
You do. You want to kind of find that. I mean, it's even like us on the marketing side. We're kind of that boutique where we're not too big, but we're also not too small. But we can really take the time to kind of carve out that strategy. And I love it when I have a client that's working with a company like yours, and I can get access to data, and it's like I can create messages that are so unique and so specific to it. See, I think that's what it is. I think dealerships, okay, that's cool. I can go talk to a company, I can purchase data, but then how do I translate that out into a marketing campaign?
Yeah, so if you were to hire a data analytics or a data science company, they're going to provide all that information to you. They're going to break your data down into buckets. And the data that they have access to is probably a big key indicator. You're going to want somebody who has a heavy focus in automotive, whether it be from online intent, behavioral, extensive historical data as well. That's a pretty big key indicator.
Yes.
A lot of people are very cyclical in their vehicle purchases. So anybody who has a good amount of historical data that can say, hey, this person is every 3 years they're known to lease another vehicle. They're also known to defect, or they're brand loyal. That's the biggest thing.
And then
anyone who can tell you
bucketing those guys, and then making unique messages for them.
Well, your message to your brand loyal customer is not going to be the same as your known defector.
But it shouldn't be. But as an industry, we don't typically do that. We do this spray and pray method, right?
Well, it's the one size fits all.
Yes.
Creative and content is expensive. It's hard to stay on top of in the rotation of it. But you can hit 5,000 people one time, or you can hit 1,000 people 5 times. Cadence is huge too.
Huge.
You spend the same dollar, but if you're just saying, I want to saturate it, this zip code because my heat map says, I do well in this zip code. Well, if you're a Honda store, there's Toyota brand loyal people, there's Hyundai brand loyal people, there's Nissan brand loyal people that are never going to buy from you ever. And it has nothing to do with because they don't like you or they don't like Honda. It's just they're brand loyal to their brand. Why are you going to waste the money?
Exactly.
You're sending them a direct mail piece. You're paying, you're probably in at $1.70 with, stock, postage, creative, and all that to somebody who's never ever going to buy a Honda. And then people say, oh, well, I'll hit them digitally. Well, you hit them 7 times digitally and it's 14 cents, but you do 14 cents thousands of times.
It adds up.
You could have still done it. So, you don't market to all your customers the same way with a single one-size-fits-all message.
No, you don't. And now we kind of go into, and I like that's a good segue, kind of into ad spend waste.
Yep.
Right? Like there is a ton of that going on.
Massive.
So, when I hear dealers use the excuse, well, isn't it expensive to work with a company like M1? And I said, yeah, but do you know how much you're wasting right now? Like, I'm sure you probably have some stats on this. Like, what is some of the ad spend waste that's going on right now?
So one of the largest ad spend wastes, believe it or not, is actually a dealer's first party data.
Okay.
We do a ton of what we call data hygiene to dealer DMS files and dealer CRM files. But the average dealer DMS file has a 38% no longer owns in their DMS.
Wow.
So
38%?
38% is the average that will wash out of a dealer's DMS just in no longer owns vehicle.
And is that just because we're just not updating the DMS correctly, or
well, they're
just a lot of reasons?
Most of them are just defectors.
Oh yeah, that's it.
And the dealer just hasn't updated their database. BDC's not staying properly in touch to know if they own any longer. It's a plethora of things. They move. Another big one is move out of market. No longer live in their PMA. It is another huge one. I mean, I would say that probably on average 45 to 48% total washout on a dealer DMS file on a fresh hygiene.
No kidding. Wow.
But
no, it does make sense. And I've actually seen this. I mean, I just recently saw this like in action. I was visiting a friend of mine. He's not a client. He's just a friend, but we just always stayed, just good friends. And I went in there to have a coffee with him, and there was a stack of these red envelopes that were like, it was like this high. There was like a big rubber band wrapped
return
around
mail.
And I was like, what's those? And he's like, it's from our last private sale. And I was like, holy crap, that's a lot. He goes,
yep.
Really? That's actually pretty normal. I'm like, normal? Wait a second.
But now you take that stack and you buy $1.70 for every one of those envelopes, and everybody's like, oh, it's $1.70. Well, yeah, okay, it is $1.70, but $1.70 on 1,000 returns, $1,700.
Man, that adds up quick. And they're running events every month. I'm just doing the math quickly in my head. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. Can we talk about this? I know you're not my client, but can we talk about this for a second?
No, it's data hygiene is probably one of the most overlooked things in any industry, not even just automotive.
Yeah.
But obviously here we're talking about automotive today. So data hygiene is probably one of the first things that a dealership could do. Mm-hmm. And with dealer hygiene, you can do data enhancement. You can understand your audience better, understand your PMA better.
Yeah.
And it's really not that expensive. I mean, average data hygiene cost is about $525 through and through.
That stack alone I saw in his office was probably worth more than that.
Oh yeah.
Like right there.
Yeah.
See, I don't think dealers even know that. Like I love it. I'm glad that we're doing this conversation. I get passionate because I'm just like, come on, guys, for this kind of cost, like, get serious about your data. I mean, look, there are agencies that care, and then there's a lot of agencies that frankly don't. And it's like they will take your data and they'll just use it. And
because a lot of them make money on a cost per thousand basis, so they're making money on those 1,700 returns.
Well, and that's just the savings, and we're just talking about one little space. We're talking about print, right?
Yeah.
When we start talking about the savings in like digital,
yep,
right? I mean, I review so many different dealerships, ad efforts, and it is just wide and broad and low frequency. But hey, my agency said I got 1.8 million impressions. Okay. So for people out there that may be in charge of their digital marketing at their dealership or working with an agency, all right, what are some of the best data practices for that?
I think it varies from a geography standpoint.
Okay.
Obviously, you're not going to treat a dealership in an urban area the same way you are in a rural suburban area. From a digital perspective, the PMAs are obviously going to be a lot different. Rural, you're going to have a much wider PMA. Urban, you're going to have a much tighter PMA. So I think that really varies. But again, it all comes down to whatever your market penetration is really, and what your goals are to either expand that market penetration, or, building brand awareness, how old's the dealership, how many people in the area know, understanding one of the big things that we're getting into now with digital billboards is understanding, most often traveled routes for households to understand whether or not they're driving past the digital billboard.
Yes.
And another matter of fact, now that I say that, another massively overlooked piece in data is dealers are very centric and say, this is my PMA, this is all I can market to. But what they overlook is how many people live outside of their PMA but work in their PMA. They spend more hours in their PMA even though they don't live in the PMA. And they don't market to them. But it's
because they don't think they can.
Well, they don't think that they can, but one of the biggest things they miss out on is it's easier. Not only is it easier for that person to buy from you, they spend more hours in your PMA, but it also makes it a lot easier for you to pitch them service.
Oh, 100%.
So they can drop off their car on the way to work in the morning.
Yeah.
If you have a taxi a shuttle service or a rental program, you get them in a rental, they go to work, they get done work, they come back, they pick you up, and
people that work in the area are the best because they have time.
But it's probably one of the most overlooked areas in a marketing strategy for a dealership.
That's because a lot of dealers are still under the impression that they have to market to a postal code. There are still a lot of dealerships that don't know that we can market directly to this bad boy
a mobile
right
device.
Here. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think everyone understands how to market to a postal code, right? I can go in, I can carve out my area, I make my circle, or I can input my postal codes, and then I'm good to go. But to your point, we can market to that device.
Yeah, so we do a ton of mobile location data. We process about 22 to 23 billion records a day.
Jeez.
We monitor every car dealership across America, every independent repair facility, every hotel, motel, every quick serve restaurant, every coffee shop. We monitor 8.2 million businesses or points of interest a day.
Wow.
Across 22 to 23 billion geolocation movement records.
I remember last time we were recently talking, we were geeking out a little bit because you just bought yourself some new servers.
Yep.
Some people buy a car like this, but not this man right here. All right, he doesn't buy this car. He goes and buys servers.
Yes.
Probably more than the car.
Well, based on what I pay for servers, I could buy Lamborghinis or Ferraris. So with the location data, we're able to understand a lot of pattern behavior, real life pattern behavior. Yes. That's online intent data is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of, window shopping, if you will.
Of course.
With online intent data. And you see it more in like watercraft and recreational vehicle. A lot of,2 shopping, guys that want to buy a boat, but the wife will never let them.
I spent 2 years shopping for a boat.
Yeah.
It wasn't 90 days. It was 2 years. I was like, maybe I'll wait till next season. And then.
Or not only that, it's you're out to dinner with a couple of buddies and somebody asks a question. You Google search something. You don't have that intent.
It's a really good point.
But you're gonna get cookied, okay?
Yeah.
And somebody's gonna spend money to just constantly remarket you for the next 30 to 60 days on something you were searching for a buddy for.
Yes, exactly.
So that's the good thing with the location data is physical repetitive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Starbucks 4 times a week, okay?
I understand that.
I know you're a Starbucks guy.
Yes.
I'm not going to market to you for Dunkin' Donuts. It's just you're brand loyal, okay?
Now, real quick, for anybody out there that's watching and listening, when we say you, we're not. I'll wait till that passes. But we're not playing you as an individual.
Correct.
I know there are some dealers that get freaked out a little bit about this,
correct.
Right? With these,
we're talking about the device.
These devices have an ID, and that's how we identify those. It's not Jason Harris. It's whatever my ID number is on my device.
Correct. and that's another big, misconception. So we're at mobile app direct with our location data, predicated off of our lightweight location SDK. So there's, I already know somebody's going to say it in the comments wherever you post this. They're going to be like, oh, Apple iOS 15, blah, 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 blah.
Well, we can talk about that too.
So one of the good things, and again, another shameless plug while we're better than everybody else, is because we're app direct, we're not nearly as dependent specifically on a mobile app ID.
Yes.
Because
so
we have a
App Direct.
subscriber
Yes.
ID.
Yes, and that's huge. That makes it so. I'm gonna use the Canadians real quick as an example because I know I got a lot of Canadians out there. All right, something along the lines of like 88% of Canadians have subscribed to the Weather Network app because in Canada we love to just always know what's going on.
You just want to know how much snow you're going to get.
We want to know how much snow it is. We're always just praying for a nice warm day. So we're always checking it. So that's what when we're saying app data.
Yep.
That's just one example of
correct
hundreds of thousands of examples, I'm sure.
Yep.
What actually, I'm actually curious. What is some of the biggest apps that you're able to collect data from?
We do a lot of weather, do a lot of news, a lot of gas apps.
Gas?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Gas apps are huge. A lot of people want to know, hey, where's the best price
prices.
for gas?
Yeah, that makes sense, especially right now.
A lot of online dating. I'm a little ashamed to admit that one.
But it makes sense, that's where we're able to collect that data. So, so when we start combining data, this is where it starts getting really cool. So
a lot of games too.
Games. That totally makes sense.
Games
100%.
is huge. And we specifically went after games, and the reason for that was you go to a car dealership, you're in for service for an oil change, you're going to be on your phone.
You're going to be playing your Pokemon Go or whatever.
The first thing you're going to do is you're going to hit social media, possibly email, and then after a few scrolls, you're going to go to a game or you're going to go to a news app or things of that nature. So we try and specifically target apps where we know that someone is going to, go after about 8 minutes of idle time.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that. After 8 minutes of idle time, you've checked your email, you've checked your social, and now you're playing your Candy Crush.
Correct.
That actually, now that you say it out loud, I'm thinking about it because I like to watch people in service lounges, right? And that's like 100% correct. I mean, I don't even think I probably even do that, right? I'll check my emails, and I gotta check my LinkedIn, and I'll check my Insta, and then I'll check, maybe our Asana or our chats or in between chats, right? And then I'll probably play a game. It's so funny. But it's when we start connecting these dots of data where then things get super interesting.
Yes. We build out some pretty ridiculous behaviors.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think anybody that's watching and listening goes, oh, all right, cool. I got device, I got online, I got my in-dealership data, so I got app data, I got location data. If I want to target somebody that I know drinks Starbucks, or if I want to target somebody that I know visits a dog park, or I'm selling minivans and I want to target, somebody that I know has kids in elementary school.
So dog park, kind of automotive related.
Yeah.
So we do a lot in the recreational vehicle space, and one of the things, we have a lead scoring program for recreational vehicles. We found out that if a couple owns a dog and they're shopping for an RV, they are 3 times more likely to buy than a couple that does not own a dog.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, okay, I can see
So it's
that.
kind of like
Yeah.
one of the, because you said
Yeah.
dog parks, and it's just, but, you know, if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know, but I mean, but this is the fun part.
Yeah,
Like,
that is the fun part.
Like, we start like putting these dots together. I mean, I remember I was working with Subaru on a campaign, and Subaru has a whole series of commercials around dogs.
Yep.
Right, and they wanted to target that specifically.
They're in outdoors, you know, get out and, you know,
Want to target
hike and-
campgrounds.
exactly.
And stuff like, absolutely. So, give me some kind of examples or some fun examples of when you start connecting the dots, and how cool the outcome can be.
So, you want automotive specific?
Sure.
Because I can give you a good one in the travel hospitality space.
Any example. I think what we're trying to do is just trying to get everyone kind of to understand that when we start connecting the dots, some really cool things can happen.
So we do a lot of work in the travel destination resort, and there's one specific resort we do this for in Orlando, national property as well. But specifically, they like to target the Orlando market. So their entry-level timeshare package is $14,000.
Okay.
So in their mind, if you're a family of 4 and you travel to Orlando, spend 7 days in Orlando, and visit at least 2 parks, they say that's a $10,000 to $12,000 vacation. So what we do,
I can attest to that 100%. At least that amount. At least.
Exactly. So what we do for them is we monitor the Orlando airport.
Okay.
Anyone that comes into the Orlando airport that doesn't live in the state of Florida
Any device that's coming in there, yep.
checks into one of their 12 competing destination hotels.
Yep.
Visits at least 2 parks. Okay. They say that is a quote unquote lead for them that they want to market to.
Okay.
And we daily process that request. And we probably deliver about, on average, 650 to 700 records a day.
A day.
Devices, when I say
Devices,
records, for them to market their timeshare package to.
Yeah.
And it is one of their best closing ratio leads that are produced.
Makes sense to me. Wow, this road's ripped up.
It's all this Vegas construction.
Yeah, I know.
We weren't off-roading, I promise.
Yeah, we came down to do this cool video in Vegas because Vegas is so cool looking, and then literally all we've seen this whole time has just been orange cones.
Yeah. Well, they can't see them out the back.
So that's a really cool example.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about just and talk about how much ad spend would have been wasted.
Yep.
Because I mean, think about just the hundreds of thousands or millions of devices that are coming into that
Literally
airport.
millions.
I mean, literally millions that are coming into that airport, but don't fall into these other dots of data, and you're able to trickle down and say, "Yep, that's my audience." And I think that's actually how dealers should, approach companies like yours.
Yep.
Is come in and say, like, I have this audience.
Yep.
Like, I want to target this audience, and then kind of let you guys, being the data experts you are, say, okay, look, we're going to think about this, we're going to chew on it a little bit, and then we're going to kind of come back to you with some data point ideas that we're going to be able to nail down just that, right?
Yeah,
like,
we're going to look for the commonalities in the data, and we're going to essentially deliver that back to you and say, hey, when we look at your customer makeup, here's the pattern, here's the commonality, and it really may be, most of your customers own cats. You never know what it's going to be, to be honest with you. And I've been shocked 100 times over at some of the things that we have seen in, pattern behavior on a customer file.
Yeah.
And automotive, like, again, outside of automotive, you really never know what you're going to see until you see it. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, Subaru customer is going to look like a Subaru customer. Jeep customer is going to look like a Jeep. Don't get me wrong.
That are very, very specific. Now, a Hyundai Elantra customer, that can look like a lot of things.
So, you talk about Hyundai. Hyundai's, is actually a kind of weird one Only because what you see with Hyundai is a lot of parents buying for their children. Same thing with Honda.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's a great first-time buyer.
Yep, it's a entry-level car, extremely reliable, very low maintenance costs.
They shoved a lot of tech into it.
Yep.
It does got a cool factor, yeah.
So, so then you start getting into household makeups and
Yes.
age of children.
But then the cool thing is then we can actually start combining that with some of that online intent that we were talking about.
Absolutely.
You sprinkle a little bit of that in, and it just becomes so cool.
Well, and then also, but when you start looking at, historical data, cyclical behaviors, if the parental group is outside of their cyclical behavior, you see a late teen in the household, okay, and you kind of start to understand that, well, they're not shopping for themselves, they're shopping for, soon a new driver.
Yes.
Okay. So having that historical data also on top of that intent data gives you a better idea.
That's right. It's not
in
just
the
the
household
data now, it's the historical data to combine with
but
it.
who in the household?
So when we say historical data, just for everyone that's watching and listening,
Okay.
like how far back?
So we have from 81 to current.
Oh, jeez.
So 40 years.
Wow. That's insane.
Yep. And we bucket it. So, and the way that we bucket it is obviously brand loyal.
Yep.
Defectors, cyclical behavior. One of the biggest ones we monitor, we call it climbing the tier. So,
going from one.
Start out at an entry level,
Move to a Honda to an Acura,
upgrading. Climbing to the luxury market, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow, that is so cool. But you know what, though? I think for dealers out there watching and listening, what you're hearing Greg say is that there's just a lot of opportunities for you and the dealership and your marketing department, but it does take a little onus on you, the dealer.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, take the time to truly understand the audience that you want to target. Bring those audience to a great company like Greg's, and let them work that magic. You're going to see the savings in ad waste in such a huge way that you're going to wonder why you didn't do it earlier.
It'll pay for itself in the first 30 to 60 days, guaranteed.
Yes.
And obviously, it also depends on how big of a dealership it is. How many units you move a month.
Yeah.
But what a lot of your smaller, dealer, your average dealer, call it 80, 100 units a month type dealer, you have a smaller database. So you're not going to pay as much as someone who has a much larger database.
100%.
So, they need to understand that as well. When you're doing, data analysis, it's predicated on how much data you're using. It's not just a one-size-fits-all package. And I think that's another, very misunderstood thing. They think they're going to get charged the same as a large group's going to get charged, but they don't have the same size database or data makeup. So it's much more lightweight. It's much easier to process.
Well, and that's what I love about you guys is that you're willing to work with the big fish, and you're willing to work with the medium and the small size ones too.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you guys got a solution for everybody, which I think is just absolutely super cool. Hey, Greg, I know we're towards the tail end of our podcast today, but for everybody that's been watching, listening, and they would like to maybe connect with you or even continue this conversation or some parts of it, what's the best way to connect with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Gregory Ashe. Email me, gash@m1-data.com. Visit our website, take a look, understand our technology stack. We have a bunch of customer service representatives. Feel free to call into our office. We have a ton of folks that can help you out. We definitely take the approach that free consultation, answer all of your questions, take time, come down, visit our office. If you're in Canada, it's starting to get cold outside. If you live up north, it's starting to get cold outside. Come on down to Florida. Everybody wants to come to Florida. Take you out for a nice meal.
Thank you so much for your time,
Jason,
man.
great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.